Welcome back into another episode of the Spaceman 2.0 Phoenix Truth Rising Show. Here to help you grow in the knowledge and wisdom of truth, and the truth will set you free. With the best history lesson and spiritual insights on the planet, exposing the Illuminati's plan of world conquest. It's the death knell to the New World Order. Through the Phoenix Journals and the commentation of HATONN with his spiritual insights, we're going to get back on into the proponents of fission theory, how the moon has been captured, where the origin of the moon is, and hopefully we'll get into the 3 days of darkness, the photon belt as well. So with that being said, let's get back on into God Too Has a Plan 2000, Divine Plan, Volume 2. Proponents of fission theory. Proponents of the fission theory have offered various variants thereof in order to overcome the distance problem, as well as the truth, which is further constrained by a concept termed the Roche limit, the distance within which the tidal forces overcome the gravitational force. But all variants of the fission theory have been rejected because they violate the laws of the preservation of energy. The theory requires much more angular momentum than has been preserved in the energy that exists to spin the Earth and the Moon around their axis and to orbit around the Sun. Writing in the book Origin of the Moon, 1986, John A. Wood of Harvard-Smithsonian Center for Astrophysics, a review of hypothesis of formation of Earth's moon. This is certainly one of your finer, constipated Rockefeller institutions. Summed up this constraint thus: the fission model has very severe dynamic problems. In order to fission, the Earth had to have about 4 times as much angular momentum as the Earth-Moon system now has. There is no good explanation why the Earth had such an excess of angular momentum in the first place, or where the surplus angular momentum went after fission occurred. My, and HATONN is confusing? The knowledge about the moon, supposedly acquired from the Apollo program, added geologists and chemists to the lineup of scientists rejecting the fission theory. The moon's composition is, in many respects, they say, similar to Earth, yet different in key respects. There is sufficient kinship to indicate that they are very close relatives, but there are enough differences, as reported, to show that they are not twin brothers. This is especially true of the Earth's crust and mantle, from which the moon had to be formed, according to the fission theory. Thus, for example, the moon has too little of the elements called siderophile, such as tungsten, phosphorus, cobalt, molybdenum, and nickel, compared with the amount of these substances present in the Earth's mantle and crust, even in the Grand Canyon, and too much of the refractory elements such as aluminum, calcium, titanium, and uranium, even in the Florida Everglades. In a highly technical summary of the various findings, the origin of the moon, American scientist October 1975, Stuart R. Taylor stated, "For all these reasons, it is difficult to match the composition of the bulk of the moon to that of the terrestrial mantle. Even in the Philippines? How about the Mojave Desert? Remember, the Philippines is the Mariana Trench, with the deepest trench in the world, where you have heavy water in there, deuterium, and if you put that water into your gas tank, it runs just like gasoline these days. But they won't use it because it's only $5 a barrel instead of which they keep pumping up gas to. And it's renewable because the Mariana Trench keeps getting heavy water continuously created there. So all you got to do is siphon it out from the bottom of the Mariana Trench. The book Origin of the Moon, apart from its introductions and summaries, is a collection of papers presented by some 62 scientists at the Conference on the Origin of the Moon, held at Kona, Hawaii in October 1984. A better location? At least for a vacation. The most comprehensive since the conference 20 years earlier, that had mapped out the scientific goals of the unmanned and manned moon probes. In their papers, the contributing scientists approaching the problem from various disciplines invariably reach conclusions against the fission theory. Comparisons of the composition of the upper mantle of the Earth with that of the moon, Michael J. Drake of the University of Arizona stated, rigorously exclude the rotational fission hypothesis. even in South America. Capture theory, or gotcha. The laws of angular momentum plus the comparisons of the composition of the moon with that of Earth's mantle also ruled out, after the landings on the moon, the second favored theory, that of capture. According to this particular theory, the moon was formed not near the Earth but among the outer planets or even beyond them, somehow thrown off into a vast elliptical orbit around the sun. It passed too closely to the Earth, was caught by the Earth's gravitational force, and became Earth's satellite. Hot dog. Gotcha in action. This theory, it was pointed out after numerous computer studies, required an extremely slow approach by the moon toward the Earth. This capture process, not unlike that of the satellites you have sent to presumably be captured and remain in orbit around Mars or Venus, etc., fails to take into account the relative sizes of Earth and Moon. Relative to the Earth, the Moon, about 1/80th the mass of Earth, is much too large to have been snared from a vast elliptical orbit unless it was moved very slowly. But then, as all the calculations have shown, the result would be not a capture, but a collision. This theory was further laid to rest by comparisons of the compositions of the two celestial bodies. The moon was too similar to Earth, and too dissimilar to the outer bodies to have been born so far away from Earth. Extensive studies of the capture theory suggested that the moon would have remained intact only if it had neared Earth, not from a way out, but from the very same part of the heavens where Earth itself was formed. This conclusion was accepted even by another famous scientist, S. Fred Singer of George Mason University, a proponent of the capture hypothesis. In his paper, Origin of the Moon by Capture, presented at the above-mentioned conference on the origin of the moon, capture from an eccentric, heliocentric orbit is neither feasible nor necessary, he stated. The oddities of the moon's composition can be explained in terms of a moon formed in an Earth-like orbit. The moon was captured while forming near Earth. Do you feel like you are in a B-grade movie plot? So be it, for these are current modern projections. COACCRETION. These admissions by proponents of the fission and the capture theories led support to the third main theory that was previously current, that of coaccretion, a common birth. This theory has its roots in the hypothesis proposed at the end of the 18th century, one Pierre Simon de Laplace, who said that the solar system was born of a nebular gas cloud that coalesced in time to form the sun and the planets, a hypothesis that has been retained by modern science, showing that lunar accelerations are dependent on eccentricities in the Earth's orbit. Laplace concluded that the two bodies were formed side by side, first the Earth and then the Moon. The Earth and the Moon, he suggested, were sister planets, partners in a binary or two-planet system in which they orbit the sun together while one dances around the other. Would it be a waltz or a Texas two-step? The natural satellites or moons coalesced from the remainder of the same primordial matter of which their parent planet was formed, is now the generally accepted theory of how planets acquired moons, and should also apply to Earth and the Moon somehow. As reported, found by the Pioneer and Voyager spacecraft, the moons of the outer planets that had to be formed by and large out of the same primordial matter as their parents are both sufficiently akin to their parent planets, and at the same time reveal individual characteristics as children do. This might well be true also for the basic similarities and sufficient dissimilarities between the Earth and the Moon. At least this does begin to enter the realm of possibilities. Also reject this theory. What makes scientists now reject this theory when it is applied to the Earth and the Moon is their relative sizes. The Moon is simply too large relative to the Earth, not only about 1/80th of its mass, but about 1/4 of its diameter. This relationship is all out of proportion to what is known to be elsewhere in the solar system. When the mass of all the moons of each planet, excluding Pluto, is given as a ratio of the planet's mass, the results clearly present the anomaly in point. A comparison of the relative sizes of the Earth, of the largest moon of each of the other planets with the size of the Moon relative to Earth, shows great disproportion and too much angular momentum. in the combined Earth-Moon system to readily support the binary planet hypothesis. Oops. Theory. What you now end up in conclusion of the above is that all three basic theories are unable to meet some of the required criterion to the point that you can wonder how Earth ended up with its satellite at all. Such a conclusion, in fact, does not bother some. They point to the presumed fact that none of the terrestrial planets other than Earth have satellites. The two tiny bodies that orbit Mars are agreed captured asteroids. If conditions in the solar system were such that none of the planets formed between the Sun and Mars, inclusive, obtained satellites in any one of the considered methods, fission, capture, co-accretion, should not Earth, too, being within this moonless zone, have been without a moon? But there remains the obvious fact that Earth, as you know it, and wherein you can know it at all, does have a moon, and an extremely large one at that. So might it not be wise to effort to account for that? Well, Dharma, we won't account for it at this sitting, for I need you elsewhere and you need a respite from the keyboard. We need to finish tape 6, please, before continuing on with writing today. Thank you for your patience. Don't concern about your getting behind in the workload. We will take what we can as we can do so. Mankind must also make his priorities listings, and their priorities are not your priorities. Thank you. HATONN to stand by. Salut. Chapter 3, Recording Number 1, HATONN, Tuesday, July 7, 1992, 9:12 a.m., Year 5, Day 326. Thank you. Thank you for your response to the radio stations and hosts for their recent daring interviews. This is the way you fight the system, by making sure the ones who are willing to risk and speak out remain able to do so. I salute them for service beyond that which most are willing to do for brother and nation. Just going to read some excerpts from the next couple pages, down in the last paragraph. You ones need to become more insightful to another's needs and offerings. What may start out even as a lark or a curiosity rarely remains one when truth of circumstances come full blown. By the way, once touched by the Brotherhood and visited by same with visible vehicles craft, the incredible becomes very, very credible. And we have several in a state of consternation right in our midst. Over the years, we have made sure of visitation to ones who would later serve or work in our company, and the facts are understood before the journey is too far along. It is a wise man who hears the voice of wisdom, and in spite of hardship, makes changes according to that wisdom, rather than simply wait, hoping the negative aspects will simply go away. Do you not believe that many ones come and go through our company herein with intent to pull us down and destroy? Most only gain respect for us and realize we harbor no vengeance nor intent to interfere. They know we have agreements with the elite to allow for our mission, and yet there are those who override their own elite masters to effort to destroy our work and our very beings. Ones are wise and diligent to leave that which is great to move to that which is even greater, and to do so without ability to see the ending of the pathway, save for goals and expectations of attaining same. Let's reread that last sentence. Ones are wise and diligent to leave that which is great and to move to that which is even greater, and to do so without ability to see the ending of the pathway, save for goals and expectation of attaining same. Dr. Coleman continues his overview of the Committee of 300 so that the line of power is revealed as clearly as possible. Are there truths greater than that of another? No, for all truth is in the matters of actual workings of human and nations is already great. Moreover, they only speak that which others have uncovered, and they be but among the many now who go forth to share it with you the people, instead of lying in the luxury of security of passage. Yes, you do ask me about getting out of the intelligence services, and I can only tell you that it is very difficult to do so, alive. If you think it matters to me that ones have served the adversary, I must remind you that the intelligence services were those groups most praised and honored for their work. This is why it was so desirable for the adversary to gain control over their actions. If you are to grow up through the ranks and into the light, you need to know the workings of how better than to have been one of them. So if you are to grow up through the ranks and into the light, you need to know the workings of how better than to have been one of them. Further, if one's demand to know all in the instance of another, you err, for you are simply curious, and your curiosity and my lack of discretion can cost another his very life. I shall not stoop to consideration of such. You can continue to ask. I shall continue to decline response. Had it not been for George Green and his daring, there would be only a very few journals published and no paper, for our ones could not do it alone. Nothing has changed in the move of separation of people and proximity. There must be work in the state wherein our business functions, for it is the security of our work and of the people involved. Down at the bottom, the word of God shall not be stopped by those or any other. Ones have different purposes, and our mission is massive, that each must go forth and do that which is necessary, without thought to preference. And so are they among the most blessed, for they ask not for self. No one in this place expects ease of passage, and they certainly have not received it. But the challenges are exactly that. Challenges. We have been most careful in our structuring of our work, careful indeed. Don't concern yourselves too much with who a man is or what he was, for a contract is only that which is between God and individual. Even a most tiny little gray robotoid, when touched by the breath of life, is transformed. We must work within this system created, and how else can you accomplish gain without working arm in arm with that which is presented onto you? This is a primary lesson. You cannot win this battle on a physical battlefield. It shall be won through the hearts and intentions of man. Let's reread that again. This is a primary lesson. You cannot win this battle on a physical battlefield. It shall be won through the hearts and intentions of man. And that's why we have to continuously put out there the principles of Christ, and that will transform the face of the planet. It's not a religion. It's just a way of living, really. News, new news. Nay, there is no new news, only the old represented. All ones spend their current days pondering on future days and expected or unexpected things which may or may not happen. You perceive the earthquakes are all off now. Ask the ones in this place stricken. They will assure you that, as of this 24-hour period, the aftershocks and damaging magnitude are still constant. You simply do not get any news. When a woman is given coverage for a full 2 days because she donates her eggs because she is Jewish and is getting even with Hitler by producing more and more Jews. Your world is sick. Your nation is collapsing, and this kind of garbage takes hours of time on the broadcast, while news is hidden and squelched. A tidal wave at Daytona Beach and 2 nuclear power plants accidents at Penn in Nebraska on the same day, 4th of July yet. Don't even make honorable mention, but a woman's eggs for revenge in an overpopulated starving world gets 2 full days of coverage on the half hour.